How are you guys doing tonight? It's clear and kind of chilly here. I'm not sure how long I'll be able to hang out, but we got to do this. I got this new book a couple weeks ago called "To Be a Jew" by Rabbi Chaim Halevi Donin, and in it, I was reading. I think it's been almost a week now since I found this. Just haven't had tried to get online a few times to go over this, but just haven't found the time. Oh, it's something going on, some kind of distractions. But in page 59 and 60, he brings the Rambam, and his description he calls the middle path, or the middle road of character traits and behaviors. And he says, lest a person say, since jealousy, lust, and desire for honor are evil ways, I will separate myself from them completely, and go to the other extreme, to the point where he refuses to enjoy the pleasure of food by abstaining from eating meat and drinking wine, where he refuses to marry a wife, or to live in a pleasant house, or to wear nice clothing, but instead chooses to dress in rags. This too is an evil way, and it is forbidden to go that way. One who goes in such a path is called a sinner. Therefore, our sages ordain that a person must deny himself only that which the Torah has forbidden unto us, but he must not forbid himself things which, according to the Torah, are permitted. And concerning all such matters, King Solomon says, do not be overly righteous, and do not be too wise, lest you be led to iniquity. Ecclesiastes chapter 7, verse 16. But later on in Rambam's teachings, he also says there are certain times where a person becomes so debased and so addicted to their desires that they have to, really the only remedy is to adopt the extreme opposite. So they have a lust for food, and they're a glutton. So the only cure is for a temporary amount of time to restrict themselves to minimal diet or fasting, or a combination of the both. And the same thing he describes with traits of stinginess. If a person is extremely stingy, he says to give a coin a day every day until he breaks himself of the habit. But later on in this passage are a couple of my favorite verses from the book of Deuteronomy. And this is so amazing. I never saw this before, but he says, a person must keep away from things that cause illness and train himself to do only things that are healthy. It is written, for your own sake, therefore be most careful. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 14. And take utmost care and watch yourself scrupulously. Deuteronomy chapter 4, verse 9. Thus, excessive drinking, smoking, and the abuse of drugs, or the eating of food that prove harmful to health, are forbidden from the halakhic view. Now, the basic bashat, the plain, simple meaning of these verses, is a prohibition against idolatry, or the entire passages. But the basic meaning is to literally guard your soul. That's what it says. be most, let's see, what is it? Only take heed to yourself and guard your soul exceedingly, lest you forget the things which your eyes have seen, unless they depart from your heart all the days of your life, but teach them to your sons and your sons' sons. That's verse 9. And verse 15 is, therefore take care to guard yourselves, guard your soul, guard your nephesh, for you saw no manner of form on the day that the Lord spoke to you in Horev out of the midst of the fire. Take care to guard your soul. We should have seen all the, all the stuff, all the stuff that other people were doing before we made any of our horrible life choices. Like people on TV, famous alcoholics and dope fiends in the music industry in Hollywood, and famous politicians. We should have seen the consequences and known to stay far, far away. And I had to go look at the verses, and verse 16 of Deuteronomy just reminded me of the things that drug addicts do. Lest you become corrupt and make a carved idol, the similitude of any figure, the likeness of male or female. And I always think about Jesus as the, relating to the basic verse and prohibition of idolatry and making a graven image. But after reading the passage in this book, it just reminded me of like people that carve weed pipes and like all kinds of drug paraphernalia, and set up little altars, and like literally altars, like with candles and photos and like all kinds of dope junk. And they sit there and they worship that stuff. And I thought, I was going to try to do this morning, but I forgot my headphones when I was out. And I was thinking, I wonder if we can connect this to the Parsha, to the Torah portion, because like Robert Rubin says in the name of the sage, everything is in the Torah. And everything is in the weekly Torah portion. And Baruch Hashem. This week is Parshat Noach, with the flood. And it's cold out here. And I haven't moved around very much. I'm gonna have to do some exercise to get my blood flowing. Weekly reading. There's a lot going on this week, just like last week. Well, we're going to talk about after the flood in the book of Genesis, chapter 9, verse 20. And Noah, man of the earth. Like it literally says, Ish ha'adamah, like man of the ground. Kind of alluding to where we all came from the dust of the earth. And Noah, man of the earth, profaned himself, and he planted a vineyard. The the usual English commentary says something like, and Noah began to till the ground, or Noah began to, there was one that said became a husbandman, like some, the sages do say that Noah was the one that came up with plowing. Before that, no one had any tools. And some of the sages say that he was actually the first one that had fingers. Every other human being before Noah was born had like webbed hands. That's why they, I forget who Noah's parents are, Lamech, I think. They named him Noah because the Hebrew stands for like they say this one will ease our burden. They say one because he had fingers, and up until that point everyone had webbed hands, so they couldn't have any real dexterity. And through prophecy that he would go on to make metal tools for farming. Where Rashi says on the verse, and Noah began. The word, I guess, Vayekel. The word may be connected also with a root meaning profane. He profaned himself, for he should have occupied himself first with planning something different, like bread, wheat for bread, something other than wine, grapes for wine, so he could immediately get wasted as soon as he got off the boat, the ark. And anyone that's read this passage of the book of Genesis knows what happened next, or at least somewhat. What really happened is they just say there's a disagreement on exactly what it was, but it's not clear from the verses exactly what it was. The sages say that his son Ham either sodomized him or castrated him. Noah got drunk as the first act that he did after getting off the boat, getting off the ark. And then suffered the consequences of a hoary, like a very. It doesn't seem like that poor a decision. It's just like I planted some grapes, I made some wine. But he debased himself. One of the important things about overcoming addiction is to see the consequences of our actions. Any addiction, whatever it is. Oh, that would have been great. I read something else in this book that is that's not really related to it. There's a bunch of stuff in this book. It's an awesome book. We learned last week in Parashat Bereshit, the first 5 full chapters and a few verses in chapter 6, some keys to overcoming addiction. I said, even if a person is a murderer, like Cain, there's always hope. Because God says so. Improve your ways. And he also warns Cain, because if you don't, sin crouches at the door and is just sitting there waiting to attack. One thing that helps to overcome physical and mental addictions is to, like Rambam said, be healthy, get some exercise, eat good food, get a decent, adequate amount of sleep. I tried, I didn't take any kind of supplements for a long time, and then somehow I've become dependent on all kinds of vitamins and minerals. One thing to say, when God gives you something that works, you can't just ignore it. I tried to do that last year and stop taking magnesium and vitamin D and some other herbs, like I think it's some kind of like ginseng. Biggest thing for me is magnesium and vitamin D. Somehow they're like a miracle. They work for vitamin D is really good for mood, for improving your mood. And it's especially critical here in the wintertime because there's not much sun. And when there is, it's especially now, because even when there is sun in the summertime, it's not good to just walk around half naked, even for a man. So vitamin D supplements are a miracle because vitamin D is necessary for all kinds of like bodily. I think it's necessary for testosterone production, which is sketchy for a single man. That's one thing I found out is I have to ride the line on my men's health if I want to stay out of eternal Gehinnom, or at least the 6th level. So you just say unintentionally wasting seed at night is only the 6th level of Gehinnom. So eventually a person gets out if we don't do teshuvah, if we don't repent. Which, if you don't know anything about what what I'm talking about. Ruben has there's a link in the description at the very bottom, or you could just click this here and watch this awesome movie. Well, vitamin D is also good for mood. So is magnesium. Well, magnesium is also good for like having a decent pain threshold, proper muscle function, heart function, brain function, sleep, stress, digestion, like just an insane number of things your body cannot function properly without an adequate amount of magnesium. And for whatever reason, my body cannot hold on to magnesium, and I must have a really horrible diet because I don't get enough. So I have to take a whole bunch every day. Baruch Hashem. Hey, how's it going? You know, sorry, I scared you away. I would have never thought that the 5 books of Moses was a recovery book. Or had, really had much to offer, other than a few little interesting bits and pieces here and there. But the more that you delve into what is in the 5 books of Moses, and especially with the immense help from the Jewish sages' commentary, you learn that absolutely everything good, everything good comes from the 5 books of Moses, aka the Torah, and also the prophets and the writings. What most people know is the Old Testament, which is the only testament. And it's real easy to know, because the way everyone else views it or teaches it or sees it, other than the Jews that learn and teach in the tradition of the sages, what's called the Masoret, that they've had for the last 3,335 years since God gave the Torah to Moses about Sinai and the Jewish people. The difference in what you get out of the verses, what you get out of what's there, is like night and day. Reading without commentary, or reading without commentary from the Jewish sages, it just looks like a bunch of names and dates and places and stories. And occasionally maybe God opens our head and lets us see some tiny bit of wisdom that we can apply to our life. But it's not until we get humbled that we really see the real value. Like Reverend Rubin said in his lecture, either today or yesterday, a folkba, kulaba. Delve into it and delve into it because everything is in it. Literally every single thing. This week, everyone's been going over stuff from the various prophets and how the war in Israel is like the entire scenario, like how the Jewish people got into the predicament that they're in, how to get out, and the fact that the Muslims are the ones that are antagonizing them, and what will be their end. And unfortunately, what looks like an evil partnership with Edom, aka America, and various allies. But there's a clip that was posted on Reverend Ruben's Shorts channel. I can't remember if it was today or yesterday. Not sure if I can find it. Maybe it was yesterday. But it's from 2020. The lecture that the clip is from 2020. And when I saw this, I was like, what in the world? That's just, that's how Hamas is in this week's Torah portion. What in the world? Nope, I guess not. Oh well. If you go on Rabbi Yaron Reuben short Torah clips, or just search Hamas and Parashat Noach. I think that's how it's spelled. I think it's Book of Genesis, chapter 6, verse 11. It says the earth became filled with violence. But Rashi says don't read it as violence, read it as robbery. Really, it's both. It's both robbery and violence. That much is obvious. Or should be. And the violence part is pretty obvious. I mean, there is just some terrifying stuff. Terrifying. One because yes, the war in Israel is happening right now, but I guess it depends on the perspective of what God deems as the world filled with violence, because that's what caused the flood. Or not what caused it, but what brought the flood upon the world. in the Torah portion this week. Was the whole earth committed so many immorality crimes, so much wasting seed, so much bestiality, so much homosexuality, so much rape. Let's just say that during that time, men would take 2 wives. They would keep one for just having kids, and then the other one they would treat basically like a prostitute / princess, where they would pamper them and give them everything and treat them like a queen. And they wouldn't have kids with this their second or main trophy wife. And it's safe to say that the final straw was God was willing to let all the disgusting filth go, all the crimes against God that he forbids. Until they started openly stealing from each other and murdering each other. Then they completely lost the right to exist. And the only human being on the face of the earth that had the merit to survive was Noah. I mean, really, let's say not even his family had the merit to live, but since God is merciful, he extends favor to the righteous and those that they care about. In the verse Genesis chapter 6, verse 11, the Hebrew word for violence in that verse is Hamas, Chet Mem Samek. And you can go search it in pretty much any website, get the Hebrew word for that verse. This is 3 letters towards the end of the verse, if not the very last word. I think it's the very last word. In verse 11. And then paste it into any search engine, and what will pop up is Hamas terrorists. I mean, literally, if a person just reads, especially with commentary, every single week, doesn't matter what we used to believe in, whether it was the idol worship of Jesus in the New Testament, or heresy, or conspiracy theories and aliens, and complete atheism, and anything. A person just reads with the intent to learn the truth and apply what they learn. That's all that's required. Every single week, there is something that just pops out of the page and stabs us in the eye with irrefutable proof that this book is from God. Everything else is complete lies and garbage. And I must learn more. More and more and more. At least to verify that what it looks like is really going on. Because I can tell you 100%. It is real. It is from God. And nothing else is. God gave us the roadmap for life. I just how to get over our addictions, whatever they may be. Addictions to drugs or sins or horrible behavior, like anger and greed and jealousy, stinginess and ungratefulness and pride. All the tools that a human being could need to become a decent human being and to live a good life and to get close to God now and forever. They're all in the book. They're in God's book, the 5 books of Moses. And only the Jewish sages have the key to understanding all of it. It just, at first, it doesn't look like that. At first, it looks extremely unclear and muddy and confusing. And you ask yourself, usually you tell yourself, this can't be right. Maybe that can, but not all this other stuff. That just doesn't make any sense. All of that is the yetzer, the evil inclination that we learned about last week, is within every human being. But just like God said last week, improve your deeds. Is even though sin crouches at the door, you can overpower it if we ask God for help. And that takes being, or at least trying to become humble. We're gonna have to do a whole other stream on how exactly. I mean, we've been really talking about the entire time. That's what Musar is. Musar is the key to becoming humble. So then we can attain wisdom. Then we can toil over our wisdom, hulaba, like gain some minuscule type of understanding. So we understand the information, the wisdom that we attained by seeing all the Keith Richards, and even though Keith Richards is a horrible example. I think the Satan props him up just for dope fiend drug addicts that have some kind of excuse. Like, see, other people die horrible deaths at 27 years old all the time, or even younger, 13, 12, 18, 19, overdoses and car accidents and suicides. But look at Keith Richards. Keith Richards is like 98,000 years old. And he doesn't do anything other than drink, smoke, and do heroin. So I'm sure I'll be the only other person on planet Earth that will have that happen. All lies of the Satan, the yetzer, the evil inclination that seeks to drag us into the pit every single day. But we should have understood that Keith Richards is literally Satan in the flesh, pretty much, or at least like one of his primary generals in the world. And all the other horror stories in Hollywood and politics and our own towns and our own families that we saw with our own 2 eyes. We should have understood that those are the consequences of getting high, Those are the consequences of getting drunk, of planting a vineyard. When we should have been plowing the ground and starting a field of wheat so we could harvest some bread for something to eat. Because man was made to toil, not to get drunk and debase ourselves. Let's learn a Mishnah on a boat. Since we're talking about planting wheat and bread. If we can find it. Oh, searching the wrong word maybe. There we go. Avot, chapter 3, Mishnah 17. Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah says, if there is no Torah, there is no worldly occupation. If there is no worldly occupation, there is no Torah. If there is no wisdom, there is no fear of God. If there is no fear of God, there is no wisdom. If there is no knowledge, there is no understanding. If there is no understanding, there is no knowledge. If there is no flour, there is no Torah. If there is no Torah, there is no flour. There's a lot there. This really seems like redundant kind of and lengthy, but there's so much going on there. He used to say, anyone whose wisdom exceeds his deeds, to what may he be compared? To a tree whose branches are many, but whose roots are few. Then the winds of the world come and uproots it and turns it upside down, as it said. And you shall be like a lonely juniper tree in the wasteland, shall not see when the good comes, but shall inhabit the parched places of the wilderness, a salt-filled land which is uninhabitable. Prophet Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 6. That's right before one of my favorite passages in Jeremiah. About the end of days, which he's also talking about right here, which we are living in. But one whose deeds exceed his wisdom, to what may he be compared? To a tree whose branches are few, but whose roots are many, and even if all the winds in the world would come and blow upon it, it would not move it from its place, as it is said. You shall be like a tree planted by the waters, which spreads out its roots by the river, and shall not perceive when heat comes, but its leaf shall remain fresh, and it will not be troubled in the year of drought, nor will it cease to bear fruit. Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 8. What filth. Okay. I think it's in right around here somewhere. Oh, that's right. It's not chapter 17. It's before that. Jeremiah chapter 16, verse 19. This is what all the Goyim, all the non-Jews are going to say. At least all the ones that aren't in the army of Gog and Magog that survive to see or some point during these times. O Lord, my strength and my stronghold, my refuge in the day of trouble. To you nations shall come from the ends of the earth and say, our fathers inherited other delusions, things that are futile and worthless. hevel, complete nothingness. Eventually, Rashi says, eventually the heathens will come to you, the one and only God, and worship you of one accord, and they will say, how do they make gods for themselves, and they are no gods? Like it says in the next verse, verse 20, can a man make God for himself? They are no gods. Whether it's a little wooden cross with Jesus on it, or without Jesus on it, or a Buddha statue, or a crack pipe, or a weed pipe, or a bottle of pills, or a dollar bill, or a Bitcoin, or a machine gun, or the strength of my own hand, or your own hand. It's all idol worship. 100% idolatry. Assuredly, I will teach them once and for all. I will teach them my power and my might, and they shall learn that my name is Hashem. Anyone that knows what that means should be terrified of what it's going to take most people to get to that point. Vayadu. They shall learn. And learning from God is a very painful, difficult, really not that nice a process. And Rashi says that my name is the Lord means, as its apparent meaning, a ruler and a sovereign to my full decree. Man. And to get to the point of Vayadu, and they will know, they will learn. That doesn't mean like someone on a blackboard writes some words and you learn the ABCs. That means God is going to carve it into our hearts in a fun way. or we can make the effort right now ourselves and learn Musar from the sages, from the righteous rabbis like Rabbi Reuben. That's what Rabbi Reuben says many times in his lectures over the years. You can learn Musar from God, and he will give you a special custom one-on-one a one-on-one lecture like he got for 7 years of just massive suffering and pain after he lost all, like, I don't know, 10 or 20, $30 million in a morning. That was just the beginning. You can learn like that, or you can learn from the rabbi. And do the hard work. That's really like a piece of cake. It's so easy compared to the alternative when God has to teach us like one-on-one, because we're so stupid and stubborn and arrogant, and we really don't want to listen. We just want to huff our dope fiend life away. Even the people that don't do drugs are still doing the same thing. That's one amazing thing. If God is so infinitely wise and merciful, even through the most debased things that people do to themselves, God still gives the most amazing mercy. Because anyone that's been through any kind of real addiction, we learned a lot of the hard lessons already that the so-called normies, they haven't had to deal with. So for them to get to Vayadu, where they will learn it's going to be a real hard process. But for us, it's at least a little bit easier if we don't fight it every step of the way like we usually do. And they shall learn that my name is Hashem. It doesn't say Elohim. It doesn't say God. It says the name that is used for the attribute of mercy. So even though it's going to be extremely brutal and horrendous, for anyone that hasn't started learning Musar and doing Teshuvah, Teshuva, and learning the truth and doing something. That is the most important part. Putting what we learn into action. For anyone that hasn't done that, it's going to be a just brutal process. But even that, it's not going to be strict judgment. It's going to be with the attribute of mercy. At least for anyone who's not completely wicked and not marching in the army of Esau or Ishmael. Which unfortunately is most of humanity, most of planet Earth. Start watching Reverend Rubin's lectures and pay attention. Because time is running out. We have to do as much as we possibly can. May God, may Hashem have mercy on his people, on his nation. May he protect them. And may he help us all to do more so we can help more people. We can be a vessel to help more people see the truth and fix ourselves in our own past in the process. May it be as well.